Hey guys, I am Ibigandscary. I'm bringing you another StarCraft 2 replay, this time featuring Kirb in the bottom left corner, playing our pink Zerg, and in the top right we have ThingMaker, our blue Protoss. Kirb, I know, is Masters. ThingMaker, I'm not sure. I'm going to assume that he's Masters because it's just more fun that way. This is off of the Game-FAQS tourney currently going on, hosted by Bon Carlos. It's a best of 3 at this point. First one was a best of 1, but both players have advanced to the second tier, and we are on Daybreak, which is, I guess, the first game in that pool. I don't know if they're choosing the game or if it's just laid out so you have to play this one first and then the next one and then the next one. But it's basically it. PvZ is probably my most favorite matchup to watch just because it's two aliens going at it, the type you'd see at a movie. And it looks like ThingMaker's going to be trying for a Forge Fast expand. He's got his pylon placed on the low ground, not placed where you'd hide a proxy gate, and not placed where you'd wall off your main base. So it's basically a Forge Fast expand. It's a good build, very standard, very powerful. And the reason it's standard is because it's very powerful. It's very stable. You get the Forge up, you get the Nexus up, you complete your wall off. Kind of difficult to complete a wall off on Daybreak, not going to lie. Huge gap between the two hard points. Forge goes up close to the ramp, and then you just kind of build your way down until you touch. I've seen some people incorporate the Nexus, which is where the pylon's placed. You have the Nexus right around here. You got the Forge, cannon, and then gateway kind of shielding the cannon. It's kind of difficult to get that placement just right, though, especially if you want to protect your probes later on. You can throw down the extra gateway, maybe even incorporate the Robo. I've seen that with disastrous results because the Robo got sniped by some roaches. It's a good game. You should watch it. Kirb getting up his spawning pool at the 15 supply. Probably wants to do an expansion shortly thereafter. Definitely has enough money, but with a pylon being placed down at the natural, it looks like ThingMaker has other things in mind. Has his probe scooting and shooting all the way around the third base, trying to deny that secondary expansion point that ThingMaker might be considering. Pylon being placed there too to deny that. It looks like Kirb is following suit, building a hatchery, generating some creep underneath. We'll probably warp that into a Evo chamber eventually. Yeah, deciding to go ahead and do that. Get the money back so that he can throw down an expansion of his own. Though the photon cannon is within range, so that Evo chamber is probably going to have a very hard time at staying alive for a very long time. Gateway also being built. That placement's pretty good. ThingMaker knows what he's doing, but that photon cannon is going to go to work on that Evo chamber. 750 hit points on that though, so it's going to last longer than the pylon, which only has 400. It's going to go down, and the money that's been banking for Kirb is going to instantly become a hatchery, I'm sure. There you go. And the 4 Zerglings, now lonely without their drone companion, has to go up and deal with the pylon before swinging by to see what exactly is going on at the expansion for ThingMaker. A little bit of a mixed micro there. Really wants to get those little broodlings to go to work on the probe instantly. Unfortunately, they kept getting aggroed from the photon cannon, and I believe that's because ThingMaker, top drawer, kept hitting the stop command. I'm betting he just hit the stop command, which made it so that the broodlings decided to attack the photon cannon instead. However, I think if you queue them up as like an A move and click directly on the probe, then that wouldn't have happened. So I don't know. Good scouting out of Kirb though, checking up all of the hidden places where you can throw down some tech, make sure that there's no shenanigans going on there, and then also has control of every single one of the watchtowers. Probe is swinging in from the south side, which has gone relatively unscouted by the Zerg, just the north for now, which is usually where you see a pylon placed right around here. Warp in some zealots, maybe even right here, warp in some zealots, and they just march right into the third and kill everything you've ever loved, especially when the Zergling army is far afield. Saturation's going up at the natural though, and with the hardy delay by Kirb to the Nexus of ThingMaker, we can see that the Protoss is going to have a hard time getting that saturation up to the level that Zerg already has his. Still no gas though from Zerg. You can see that 2 gas has been grabbed by Protoss. Pretty standard. They're going to start banking that gas. Another point of delay is that the Cybernetics Core probably finished without having enough gas to actually begin warp tech. And the Chrono Boost is not being spent so much on the Cybernetics Core as it is on saturation of the probes. Tells me it's more of a macro style play, no early aggression coming out of ThingMaker. He's not going to throw down a bajillion gateways up in his main base and then move off with like a 6-gate or 7-gate, because 4-gate timing's long since passed, and Kirb's going to have his macro to the point where he can just constantly produce Zerglings and deal with any sort of aggression that's going to be coming out of ThingMaker for a little while now. Also, some good scouting from Kirb, seeing that the gas down at the natural has not been grabbed yet, so it's probably safe to assume that there's not going to be any sort of airplay coming out of ThingMaker, as you normally see more gas being grabbed earlier. Saturation is now looking pretty good for ThingMaker. Money-wise, beginning to match up. Harvester deficit is still pretty heavy, but you can expect that with Zerg, especially Zerg that's one base up. But it's important to notice that ThingMaker is making headway, making himself get back in the game, and if there's one base tech, if there's one... Let me rephrase. If there's one race that can tech off of 2 base, it's Protoss. They can do a fantastic job there, and they can make themselves very secure, especially with this infrastructure going up. This is pretty much the perfect number of gateways and robos to mine off of 2 base. You can also afford your upgrades. You've got the armor on the way. Normally you see level 1 weapons being added just so the zealots can 2-shot the Zerglings, but armor will be very helpful, especially with the Immortal having just some extra beefy health, so that they can stay along for a very long time. Getting some sentries out, sentries begin to bank that energy almost instantly, making it so that they can throw down a plethora of force fields whenever ThingMaker decides to move out. Throwing in a proxy pylon, probably going to place another one a little bit closer so that he can add in some more zealots and stalkers into the army composition. Once he moves out, another Immortal on the way. That's bringing the total to 2. Probably going to see a couple more before they decides to move out. Definitely going to wait for the armor. 1-1 beginning for Kirb just now. Hopefully ThingMaker waits long enough before it gets out. It's interesting to see all these sport crawlers. Maybe he's expecting some sort of DT play. Airbase play is probably unlikely, just because we haven't seen that 4th gas being grabbed. Not unheard of. I'd actually like to hear from Kirb what he was thinking whenever he didn't see the gas timing, because gas timing is something I've always struggled with. If you watch this, let me know. Speaking of gas, a lot of gas being sent on the sentries, and the Immortals, not a lot left over for the Stalkers, making this kind of vulnerable to airbase play. But now that all the Immortals have gone up, you can see the Immortal production has stopped. All that extra gas is going to be warped in as Stalkers. Here, more Stalkers being added in, so now we have a healthy number of anti-air, and this is actually really good for the build. Not enough zealots right now that you want. You want some more meat shields to protect, especially those Immortals, which are so delicate once they get surrounded. But definitely enough of a unit composition to deal with all these Zerglings. We can see a healthy number of Zerglings are out and about. This creep spread is top drawer for Kirb, and he's got quite a lot back at home. Baneling Nest also on the way for the natural, but I don't know if these Zerglings are going to be enough to stop ThingMaker from pushing into that natural. Baneling Nest will finish, though, 1-1 as well. Pathogen Glands past the half-minute mark. We can see a couple infestors are on the way that are going to get that benefit from the Pathogen Glands. You can see the supply block from ThingMaker is because the pylon has gone down. ThingMaker making his move, deciding not to push into the natural, rather using the terrain that normally defends the home base to his advantage, pushing his entire main army up the ramp into Kirb's base and throwing down the force field there to prevent anything from pouring in, and this is really bad for Kirb. Yes, the army is trapped, but it's trapped in with all these really delicate drones and an infestor pit that's going to go down almost instantly. Throwing down a spawning pool up somewhere away, because you can assume rightly that this spawning pool is going to go down. Also expect to see another layer being warped in, probably up at the 3rd, as it's more heavily defended. Whoa! Zergling run by off by Kirb into the natural of ThingMaker, going to quick work, has taken down all the photon cannons and 100% of the saturation at this base. So base trading basically. Oh, and those Zergs have once again poured up into the main and are beginning to focus down all of these delicate probes. Just look at that. 23 to 47. The main infrastructure for Kirb has completely fallen, but all of a sudden ThingMaker has to be very cost effective with his units. He wants to keep them into the choke. He has to worry about what's going to be coming out of Kirb, and it looks like it's going to be a Baneling drop. All those Banelings up in the Overlords. Very fortunate that ThingMaker didn't decide to take out the Baneling Nest when he had the chance. A really nice fungal growth right on the Immortals and the Sentries, dropping the Banelings directly on top of the Sentries, killing all of them. No force fields to hold back these Zerglings. They're going to be able to make short work of all these units. ThingMaker trying to hold his units on the ramp, making it so that the Zerglings can't directly engage. It looks like everything is going to go down. Those Zerglings are going to eventually wear down everything. The drones have stopped mining back at home, even though the sentries have succeeded in taking out all of the Zerglings. Looks like all the Immortals have gone down. Another fresh wave of Zerglings going to finish off these Stalkers. On ThingMaker, GG's out. I thought he had Kirb in the bag when he got it into the main base, taking out all that tech. The spawning pool was going to fall in just a couple of seconds. 3 of the Zealots, which would have been much better served up on the ramp. But you got to take out that tech. Little did he know the spawning pool was rebuilt. Lair tech was on the way as the Baneling Nest had survived. Those Banelings doing some clutch dropping on those Stalkers. But really, speaking of clutch, it was the run-by of the Zergs that kept Kirb in the game. Just flipping over to the units lost tab, you can see that it was pretty heavily in ThingMaker's favor, but this should not happen. 22 workers killed for the Zerg. And that is devastating considering the numbers of harvesters that Kirb had left over. Even though he lost an entire base, he still had 50 to 18. His economy was going to be kicking butt. This game kicked butt, and you kicked butt. Thank you for watching. If you guys have a comment, you could leave me a comment. If you have a game you want me to cast, you could PM me here or on Reddit. I'm going to go cast the next game. Keep an eye out for that. I'll see you guys later. I am Ibigandscary. Bye.